What's up, guys? Welcome to the Vapor Realm. Clifford here. So happy to have you guys all here with me. And today we're going to be talking about tanks. Tanks. Got Atomizers, Cartomizers, Clearomizers, a whole bunch of Omizers. It can be really confusing. So let's talk about a bunch of these, figure out what makes them tick, what's good, what's bad, what I like, and maybe you can make some decisions on the next tank purchase for yourself. So to get started, let's say you're kind of new to vaping and you've just picked up or about to pick up your first device. The first thing you're going to need is your mod, which is what supply, or your battery, which supplies the power to your tank. And so a great first stop is some kind of variable volt twisting kind of battery, like an Ego Twist, or there's multiple different brands, but Ego Twist style. It's a great place to start. That's what I started with. You can get up to nicer devices that will do variable wattage and variable power, but variable voltage is a fine place to start with. But something you're definitely going to want is to be able to vary the volts, especially with different tanks, so that you can customize and maximize your vaping experience. So once you got your power source, next thing you're going to need is a tank to put on top of it. And so your tank is what holds your e-juice, your e-liquid, and also contains the heating element. And that is the coil that gets really hot, that touches the liquid, that makes it a vapor. So while your mod is very expensive and very important, they all do different things, the basic thing that they do is supply the power. That's all they do, is just give electricity to your tank. Your tank is what gives you your entire vaping experience, as far as how the vapor is and the quality of your vape. That entirely depends on the tank. You can have the nicest mod in the world, but if you put a shitty tank on it, it is not going to work well. And so the tank is a very important piece. So what kind of tanks are available? Basically, there are three main types of tanks. There are Atomizers, Cartomizers, and Clearomizers. A whole bunch of Omizers, but they're really easy to figure out. Basically, the simplest one would be an Atomizer. An Atomizer is basically going to be a very small cylinder, and in the bottom of it, there's going to be a coil. And you were literally just going to, at the top of it is going to be a drip tip, so you're going to take the drip tip off, get your juice bottle, and just drop a couple of drops directly onto the coil, and then you're going to put your drip tip back on, throw it on your device, take a couple puffs. At that point, you will have vaporized all the liquid that you've put in there, and all the liquid that it holds, and then you will need to add a couple more drops back into it. There is no wicking material, there's no cotton stuffing material in them, it is just the coil. And so these have benefits and bad things as well. Some pluses for Atomizers would be that with no wicking material and no stuffing material, you get the purest, cleanest flavor, and arguably the best flavor from your juices from an Atomizer. You just have nothing getting in the way of that flavor, and it's just such a simply built device that you get very good flavor, and you get a lot of great vapor production as well. However, there are also some minuses, of course, to an Atomizer, and the biggest is just the fact that they don't hold more than a couple drops of liquid. And so you're going to put 2-3 drops, you're going to take 3 puffs, and then you will have to drip some more in there, and you will consistently have to do that. So maybe on the go, an Atomizer may not be the best thing unless you're able to do that, because it can just be a hassle. However, sitting at home, in front of the TV, maybe pretty frequently having to put a couple drops in isn't going to be that much of a hassle if you're getting a super flavorful, really nice vape. And a lot of people, even with all of these newer style tanks, swear by Atomizers. And so, in the right circumstance, I think it's a very good tank. Another plus for those is that since you're using that liquid so quickly, it's very easy to then switch liquids and get different flavors, as opposed to having a tank like this where you've got to use up all that liquid before you, or use some and dump it out and throw it away before you can put a new flavor in. So that's another benefit. If maybe a little ADD about your flavors and you want to be just doing them back to back, Atomizer might be the way to go. So after your atomizer, you have a I don't know after, but another type is a cartomizer, and a cartomizer is kind of similar to an atomizer, except that in an atomizer you've got your cylinder, which is basically the cylinder in the middle of this thing. That silver cylinder in the middle, that is a cartomizer. And so that's basically an atomizer, but instead of no filling or anything, that whole center post is filled with a cotton stuffing material. Let's see if I can show you that. Yeah, you can see it in there. That whole thing is filled with that cotton. And what that does is soak up about 1 ml of e-juice. And so as opposed to putting 2 or 3 drops, you can put a little bit more, and it will hold more in that cartomizer. And then at the bottom of that cartomizer, there's a wick and a coil. And so this is basically an atomizer is basically just the bottom of your cartomizer. Cartomizer, however, is going to be completely filled with the cotton. Another thing about cartomizers is, like you see here, sometimes the cartomizer will not have this external tank. It'll just be that silver thing in the middle, and you'll just screw that on. A nice thing about cartomizer is you can get it attached to a tank like this. So you can see here, let's see if I can show you, yeah, there's 2 holes drilled into, there's the other one, drilled in the cartomizer. So the liquid that's around it can feed in through those holes as you're vaping the liquid that is inside of that tube. And so you're able to hold quite a bit more liquid, and it will constantly re-soak itself up in there and give you a good flavorful vape with a lot of flavor. A lot of vapor. Pluses and minuses. Pluses, obviously, you could hold more. Not as hassling with dripping all the time. They can be slightly harder to fill. Not really harder, but just more time consuming. You can to fill the actual cartomizer itself, you either need to put a couple drops in the top, then let those drops soak down all through that cotton, and then put a couple more, let them soak down, because you want that cotton, you have to have that cotton fully saturated. If that gets dry, that cotton in the middle gets dry, and you try to hit it, you will literally instantly burn it. And you will know when it happens, because you will instantly taste it, and that's not good. And so to fill it, you can either put a couple drops in, or you can do the condom fill method. That's the way I prefer to fill my cartos. Plenty of videos to show you how to do that. Super simple to do. But not quite as easy as just putting in 2-3 drops and immediately vaping. So a little bit more complicated, but not hard to do. And then so some minuses for a cartomizer. As I was saying, an atomizer gives you really good flavor. Cartomizers, the flavor is not near what an atomizer is. With all of this cotton stuffing material in there, it seems to be a lot of the flavor. That's kind of stopping a lot of the flavor from fully getting to you. So juices that I have out of an atomizer will taste amazing, but they won't taste quite as good out of this cartomizer. And I've had this is a Bogue cartomizer, by the way. There are many different types. A Bogue is a pretty common. And I've also heard other people say this, that cartomizers in general kind of give a carto plasticky flavor on top of the juice, kind of across the board. And so that's something to maybe be aware of. If you're really into the flavor of your juice, you're not going to get you may not get the full effect from a cartomizer. But if you're not really feeling the atomizer though, and you want to be able to hold some more, this could be a good option for you. And I'll give you guys a little toot on the Carto so you can see some of the vapor off of it. still good flavor. It's not bad. I'm getting the flavor out of it. I just realized that some of my Clearos, like my Pro Tank especially, I just get amazing flavor out of, and I know Atomizers I've had in the past just give me more flavor, but it's not that you're getting bad. It's just diminished, I would say. And then lastly, the third type of tank that you can have is a Clearomizer. Here we go right here. This is a Kangaroo Pro Tank 3, which is a really nice Clearomizer, but just to explain to you how a Clearomizer works, it looks a lot like the Bogue Carto with a tank on it. However, you've got your outer tank that holds all the liquid in it, but then you have this center post again. However, this center post is more like an atomizer than it is a cartomizer. It is not filled with cotton. Instead, in the bottom of it, and this one in the bottom, but some can be at the top, I'll talk about that in a sec, but in this one, there's a short wick, a very short wick that's barely sticking out of the edges. You can kind of see it there. A very short wick. And that wick just barely sticks out enough to suck that E-juice into the middle of this device, and there's a chamber in the middle of there, and so that wick goes straight through it, and around in the middle around the wick is a coil wrapped around it, and so the wick is going to take the juice from the outside tank, suck it up in. Instead of having those holes, it's wick sticking out like the Carto, and so that wick suck it in, and then it hits the coil, boom, vapor. So as far as Clearos go, there are several different styles of Clearos, of course. You can have top coil Clearomizers, and that means, unlike this one, this is a bottom coil. Here we go. This is a top coil Clearomizer. And so with a top coil, your coil is going to be at the top of the tank as opposed to the bottom of the tank. And so this means that when your liquid starts running low, the coil is not going to be submerged in the liquid anymore. But your coil needs to be in the liquid so that you can vape the liquid that's on it. And so to get the liquid up there once your juice level is low, these top coils have long wicks that you can see here, and that gets the juice from the bottom and will wick it up into the coil. There's some new Clearomizers coming out that I've seen. The iClear 30S, which comes with the iTaste VTR, has an even different style than this, in that these wicks are contained in the central post. And so it's almost like a cartomizer, except instead of just a cotton stuffing material, it's still long wicks like this, but they are contained in the center post. If you see a video for an iClear 30S, you'll see what I'm talking about. But same principle, wicks coming down from a top coil. The other style of Clearomizer would be a bottom coil, and that's like this. This is a Kangaroo MT3S, which is basically just a larger size for a Kangaroo EVOD, which is a single bottom coil. And a bottom coil, just like this one that I took apart and kind of showed you, has one coil at the bottom of it with those tiny little wicks. And benefits of being on the bottom: you don't need those long wicks. The coil's always submerged in that juice, and so you don't need those long wicks. However, the downside of that is that you can get a lot more flooding in a bottom coil than in a top coil. If you're not getting the right airflow to your atomizer, to your Clearo, if you're not getting if your juice is a weird consistency, a weird thickness, you may get uncontrollable flooding, to where it won't be able to work right. Flooding is when you get too much liquid into the chamber and you get a lot of gurgliness, not enough vapor, and you'll get some spattering in your mouth to be able to taste it. Not good. And so that can happen more with bottom coils. With top coils, flooding is very rare unless you have a very thin heat juice. However, a negative thing for a top coil can be that since that coil is up there and it's not submerged, sometimes those wicks will not get the juice up quick enough. And so that coil can get dry up there. And if you're trying to use it while it's getting dry, you're going to get a dry, burnt, scratchy taste. Not as much flavor, not as much vapor. So sometimes those wicks, especially with a thicker e-juice, won't keep up enough. Especially using it pretty frequently. So some pluses minuses for the top coil and bottom coil. But however, if the top coils, if they're wicking properly, then they're going to work great. The bottom coils, if they're not flooding, they're going to work great. I've had both work really great for me. So there's not really one that's better. They're just different, basically. And as with having top and bottom coils, you can also have dual coils. They're still going to either be both at the top or both at the bottom. But an example of this is what I was just showing earlier, which is the ProTank 3. It has 2 coils at the bottom of it. And with 2, you're going to have 2 wicks, and they're both going to be wrapped into individual coils, and both of those will have contacts to get to the battery. And so with 2 coils, I was first imagining like, well, shit, I'm going to have twice the vapor, twice the flavor. It's going to be great. So, went out and the first dual coil I had was the Aspire BDC, which I really did like a lot. But definitely not twice the vapor. That would be, I guess, kind of ridiculous. Because, even just to show you an example of this is, I'll take a puff off this EVOD right here, or the MT3S, which is the bottom single coil, and just to show you some of the vapor I get off this. A pretty good amount of vapor, pretty good amount of taste. And then now, let me put the beauty ring. One thing about these Pro Tanks is they have a slightly airier draw, and so I like to use the beauty ring it comes with, and then you can see there's like a gap between it. I like to then, after I screw the tank on, screw the beauty ring up so that it makes contact with the bottom of the ProTank 3. That decreases some of the airflow, which gives a slightly tighter draw, which just I personally like a little bit better. I think I'm going to turn that up a little bit. I had it down a little bit for the EVOD, yeah. So as you can see, great vapor. The taste I get out of the dual coil, much better than I get out of a single coil. Not double, but considerably better. But vapor, I would say it's probably maybe a little bit more, but it's definitely not twice. Definitely not twice the amount. I get pretty similar vapor off of these. And so those are all the tanks I got, man. We've talked about Atomizers, Cartomizers, Clearomizers, top coils, bottom coils, dual coils. Another thing about tanks is some of them have removable drip tips, so you can take that off. You can get different colors, different styles. They make metal, glass, and plastic ones. I always started with these plastic ones, and I always thought, the metal or glass, I'd probably chip a tooth or something on it, just something so hard in my mouth I didn't think that would be a good thing. So I was stuck with the plastic ones at first, but my Pro Tank came with a metal drip tip, and so I was like, I'll try it out for a little while before I switch it out. But after using it for a while, I realized I don't really put my teeth on the drip tip anyways, so metal's not been an issue at all. I actually like it a lot better than the plastic. It feels nicer in my mouth. It doesn't get scuffed up or scratched up. Doesn't show anything on it, and so I like the metal. But that's personal preference. However, some like the EVOD and this MT3S, nope, that's not going to come off. And one other thing about the EVODs and the MT3Ss is you can see this liquid. It's not going to come out, but there's like a port up there for it to like collect in. Definitely not going to come out. It's all sealed, but I don't know how I like to look at that. So those are a bunch of tanks you can get. You know, there's pluses and minuses to all of them. Me personally, I started with Clearomizers. I really like them. I think they're probably the easiest, in my opinion, to use, and especially because I can fill this tank up and be pretty much good all day. I may want to top it off at some point, but I'm definitely not going to be sitting there dripping, dripping, dripping. I don't need to do the Cartomizer is going to fill about 1 mil. If you get a tank, you may get another 1.5 mil, but this is still probably not enough for all day. But you can get Clearos with a big tank, and you know, you fill it up. Really easy to fill up. There's other videos to show you how, but you just take on most of them, it's a bottom fill. So you just take the bottom off, and then inside you'll see, you just don't want to pour it down that center tube, obviously, but you know, you just stick it down the side and pour your liquid in. Really easy to do. And these just give a very consistent performance that I really like. They have some that'll be more of a style like this, so you're not seeing all of your liquid. Some that won't show you any of it. This will all be closed off, so you don't see the liquid at all. Some people like the look of this. I kind of do, but then I kind of don't. Sometimes I feel like I'm just like, this just looks like drugs. Like, I feel like if I was out and around, this would just look sketchy almost. I kind of almost like the look of something a little more closed off better. But then, you know, maybe you want people to look at you and be like, what are you doing? And you'd be like, I'm vaping. Let me tell you all about it. So, you know, it depends on what you're looking for. But that's pretty much all I got to say about tanks, guys. If you've got any questions, comments, concerns, just want to anything to say, you know, leave a comment, message me, and I would be happy to answer anything I can. And hopefully I'll be back with some more videos soon. But I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching this. Thanks.